So I've been going through a lot of my old fish stuff. I have boxes of random junk, some of it good, some of it I don't know why I kept, some of it I wish I kept, I don't have anymore. But I've decided to start another project. I've always had a frag tank in the past. I used to have a 48 by 18 by 8 frag tank which worked perfectly. It was a nice shallow tank that you could fit hundreds of frags in. Unfortunately I don't have that tank anymore. What I do have is my 55 gallon, which I've been using as a fish quarantine tank. I also had several boxes of dry rock that used to be my live rock. I bleached it with bleach and muriatic acid about 2 years ago, thinking I would use it in my 180 gallon tank, which is now smashed in the backyard. I want to add a couple of pieces of live rock to my display tank, but I don't want to put in this white dead rock, so I'll leave it in here for a few months. And it will also serve as the filtration to the frag tank. I got a couple of Tunzi NanoStream pumps. One of them is a little bit rattly, you can probably hear it, but that's okay. This is its own room, and once I find the magnets, maybe it will stop rattling. I have lots of extra heaters, and I've been slowly adding some Astrina starfish and pods and other stuff. You can see there's a little tiny bit of algae growing on the tank. It's been set up for a week or so, and I'm just letting it cycle. Because it's dead rock, I've been feeding the tank, even though there's not much life in it, and I was feeding it before there was any life in it. There was also, unfortunately, a few bugs in the rock as it was in the shed in boxes. Surprisingly, there was this black spider, which I'll insert a clip of when I post this video, and it really freaked me out. I wasn't sure what the hell it was, but given that there was only one piece of live rock, it had to be a terrestrial spider. And now that it's been a few days, I'm assuming he's part of the cycle and breaking down into ammonia as I speak. I am still going to use this tank for fish isolation. I don't get fish very often, so it should be okay. Ordinarily I wouldn't recommend using the frag tank also for fish, but because I don't get very much stuff and I don't have any other tanks, I'm going to use it for both. I do of course still have my two 10-gallon tanks, which I will use first for tank transfer, and then if any fish need to be treated with copper, they'll be treated with copper in one of those tanks, and then transferred to here for 30 days plus observation before going to the display tank. I can also use this to quarantine corals, but I'm really going to set this up to be just for soft corals only. I used some water from my fish-only tank and from my reef. The fish-only tank has higher nutrient levels, and I will get a little bit of bacteria from the water. There's not much in the water, it's mostly on the rock and other porous surfaces, but a little bit will help. For lighting, I'm using a really old 250 watt metal halide. It's a real nice bright reflector that actually is wider than the tank. This 55 gallon tank is actually terrible for a frag tank. It's terrible really for anything other than a quarantine tank. I'm not sure who designed a 4-foot long tank to be only 1 foot wide and then somehow popularized it. But it's what I have, so it's what I'm going to use. I have the light over half the tank, and there is a fair bit of spillage over, which should work for now. If it gets to the point where this tank is filled with coral, I can add another light, or I can raise this higher. I will have to get a new bulb, as this bulb is at least 5 years old, and it's supposed to be 20K. It's an XM 20K bulb, but this white balance on the camera is pretty good, and you can see it's wider than white. So I'm looking at getting a 20K radium or something like that before I start putting the corals in. It's not really much to look at now, but the big thing with this tank is I can prune the corals in my display tank and keep it looking good. There's a chance I can trade and sell a few frags. Again, I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. I've only met 3 or 4 reefers in the last year, so I don't expect there to be a big frag market, but you never know. I can trade a few pieces and, more importantly, keep the display tank looking good. I did find lots of plugs in my rummaging of various sizes and rock rubble, so I am all set up for fragging. Lots of people have all kinds of old fish junk that they have. A lot of it is just garbage, some of it is good stuff. Impellers and things like that I tend to keep from old pumps. So if you've got some boxes of old stuff, I encourage you to go through it, thin it out, and who knows, you might have enough stuff in there to start your own project. I'll post another video once I start adding corals to this tank. Happy reefing.